everyone. So we had some stalls basically off 9.5 right at our 148 mark here. I deleted some of my flips. And then back at the calculated time around 158, 159, you can kind of see how they back tested, but they still held 7588, 7590. So some slight reduction here was pretty obvious. So they are starting to reduce range just a little bit. And again, it's that 4.5, 3.75. It seems pretty obvious that that's what they're doing. And this would have likely gotten us that better break closer to retesting 7597, 7598. Okay, so a lot of these are just kind of stalling here a little bit, okay? That's a 75.99 break. So we did have some odds just before 2, which got reduced, but they are holding 8.8. They did stall 9.5. The second window I had was closer to just before 3, around 254, 255, but I am gonna keep an eye on the midpoints here around 230, 232, 236, just to see if they can at least get us a retest of 9.5 and start clearing closer to 7595, 7599, okay? I'm just gonna leave the screen on for a second and mute myself. I'll be right back. Not showing any viewers, so I don't know if there's actually anyone here. Is there anyone here? Oh, maybe now it's updating. So some thoughts are if they really want to just pin range or limit range, like maybe closer to 75.99, 76.01, 03, 05. This is what we could start expecting is forming that base around 7588 to 75.95. Which we mentioned earlier, like this is basing now off 7588, 7590, stalled 7595. So 7595 stall is not good. Like we definitely need to take that out for any sort of continuation here to occur. But we still have some time. So what do you guys think? You think that they're gonna cap range here, max, and recycle it back down to core areas, or you think that they still have some odds to clear neutral max range for real-time session today? 7595, 7599, 7601, 7603, 7605, 7608, 7611, 7614. I don't really think we have very many odds anymore for core, but I'll just put it in there anyway. If you guys can vote on that. I feel like if they wanted core, they would have pushed 9.5 on the first attempt and likely triggered 760301 retest. So this kind of like slight reduction here of like 6 to 7 points. Do you see what I'm saying? They probably would have avoided that and instead, okay, do you see what I mean? I feel like, because weekly highs are around 7602, so they basically stalled that from getting there by reducing it by like 7 points and back testing the zone. They could still hold here and base again around like 8.4, 8.5, 8.6, like this area here, and then still bring it back, but again, that kind of just reduces range for the session today. Can you guys vote on that, please? So we'll see what we end up triggering this afternoon. I'm going to set some alerts. Excuse me. I do think that the 230 to 236 window is pretty important because this is going to differentiate whether or not they want to keep it zone bound or actually take it back to core ranges, because I do think taking it back to core ranges is likely going to reduce some of the range that we have for this afternoon today, especially after a 7595 stall. Whereas sustaining here, like around this area here, will give us some odds of at least getting a retest here maybe before 3. Whereas failing this range in here would give us odds of coming back to maybe this range in here, staying kind of in between, like within this range here by this point in time, like maybe above 90 but between 91 92. I think just kind of compresses range a little bit. Okay, so we did hold off 7, 7, 8, 7, 9 here pretty nicely, like back in here. This is really a big support area for us this afternoon, this area here. We did open in the channel, which is the only thing I really didn't like. But so I'd say this area keeps it kind of neutralized. This area increases risk. And it should be roughly the same, like close to like 5 to 6 points on each end. Around that 8.3, 8.4. 8.4 was the initial overhead, so probably closer to here. And 9.525 is the area that we have to break. The mid ranges would be like right in between here. Okay. Kind of like this. Like this area, we're definitely playing with fire here around 8.7, 8.6. See if they can hold the zone, and specifically by this 230 period to see if they can retract it back over 7.590, and then try getting that retest as early as like the 236. I didn't mark 248 and 250, but those are generic times of day for the market. Today's odds are closer to like 254, 255. And then obviously we'll watch to see what they trigger here by 3. I didn't check if we had anything happening at 3. Oh, you guys are pretty quiet today. Let me send the link for this so you guys have it here. I think we got that heat wave sent over our way because it's 30 degrees all week. So we had a really shitty summer so far in the west, but now I think that usually when Toronto and Montreal start to get cooler, it usually gets hotter here. We always get inverse weather from the East Coast, so whenever it starts cooling down there, then it gets hotter here. And I think it finally cooled down there because it was super hot there. I think they've had rain for like the last 2 days. So now they finally got some of the rain that we've had. Today's 24, but tomorrow's 28 degrees, which I think is like 80s, which for us, that's good. Are you guys okay if I wipe these off here? I just want to kind of give you guys an idea of like which area points to like which direction. So far, the 230, 236 period, like they haven't quite made a decision. Like it's still kind of stuck right in between the areas that are neutralized. Like they're still playing with fire in this range in here beneath 90, but above 8.8. They definitely have to get back over at least, I would say, like 9.2. And for bears to progress, they'd have to get beneath 8.6. Barely any of you guys voted though on the poll. So what do you guys think? You think that highs are in? You think that they can retest highs? You think we still have odds for these neutral ranges today, or you think that they're going to keep this a little bit stuck in this area here and make it pinnable for Thursday ahead of Friday? Did we have anything else this afternoon? I thought we had. No, we don't. That's it. There's a lot of flips associated with 1:48 p.m. usually, so usually when that's the case, it's multi-flips. Yeah, it is slow because these are enough to be considered technically max ranges, so the market doesn't really have to go much higher than this if it doesn't want to. So let's see. 22. Yeah, this is also linked with 54. So that's interesting because I already had 54 as a calculated time today, but it's interesting to see that the highs also align with that. 27, 33, 33-minute flips at 54 also 27. 40, 36 is 336. And then the 44-minute flips at 16, 4, 54. These are all linked with highs. Flips at 42, 336, 66, I think. Usually flips 54, yeah, 254. So, okay, so 254 is definitely spot on. I calculated that manually this morning. 327, 99, 108, also 36, 132. This is 4. The rest of these are probably all after the bell. 198, 297. These are all probably after the bell. Yeah, they are. 297. So I already had this as my calculated time between 54, 55. So it's nice to see that there's some flips at 53, 54. And then there's some odds as early as this 242, 309, 316. And then there was multi-flips at 327, which we could note. And then 336, 338. And then a few for after the bell around 412 and 4:30, but this is definitely a window here. So I had 2:54, you guys, and 2:55 as a calculated time. I did that literally like earlier this afternoon, like probably back in here this morning, but it also is aligned right now with highs. Okay, so this is definitely the point that you'd probably want to get back at least over this wall here. Otherwise, if they can't retract and retrace at a minimum this range in here before 3, then we're back at risk of potentially recycling back to core areas. This period was just more for me to kind of see the midpoints between here and here, like between this period here and this period here. 159 was an actual flip, so this reduction kind of hinted towards them keeping it sideways. So we'll see. Let's set some alerts. Am I okay to mute myself? So this was one of the earliest odds of trying to sustain and maybe get back into the zone back over 7587, 7588. I deleted the midpoints here around 248, 250, but I'm just going to watch them manually before our period here. Still not super constructive. Like that needs follow through over 8899. CSCO was one I picked up yesterday. I really kind of liked the way it was basing, and specifically off my support at 112.71. Tesla was another really strong one today that few people took in the chat. And again, off like that 390, 392, 94 is the bigger base that can get this to 410, 411. Semis have been pretty strong too. AMD was strong throughout the week, kind of losing a little bit of steam today. Oil obviously took a breather with markets moving. Oh, thank you so much, Smos, for sharing that. I haven't been putting that bot on lately, like the script bot. This unfortunately does look pretty stuck, you guys. But if they're trying to do something similar to what they did yesterday, like remember yesterday how they didn't push our 75.28 till like literally the close back in here? If they limit range today, they might want to do something similar, maybe to kind of keep it pinnable in this area here. But if they really want to just reduce range, then they'll take this back to core. We did open in the channel today, which is still a conflicted area. Ended up taking a little bit off when they failed to kind of get back over 9.5, because back in here I told you guys you can take some off between these ranges if you want, like it's not bad. But I really wanted to see if they would at least bring it back to retest 9.5 during this period, and they didn't, so I figured it's probably worth covering some in the zone just in case they end up stalling. And there is 1 day left in the week, so if they want to break this into 2 parts, then they could just leave the second half for tomorrow. But we'll see. Which end do you guys think breaks first? I feel like you guys are which end breaks by the 255 period. I'll say 255 to 3 period. Red, yellow, green. Let's see what you guys say. I'll set this for just 3 minutes since there's not that much time. Can you guys actually vote this time? There was only 3 votes last time. So if they break this down to like 8-3, 8-4, it doesn't necessarily mean that odds are off for retesting here. It just means that they probably limited range of getting to like 7608, 7611 for sure, off like 7620s. If they get this back to this neutral area here around this point in the day, odds could still be on, but maybe not as high as like 76, 12, 14, 16, 18. If they can clear 9-5, then I would say the odds would still be on for 76, 11, 12, 14. These areas here, I said it earlier, I don't think odds are super high for real time, but maybe after the bell. Obviously, it kind of just depends on what they do during the last 30 minutes of the day. Can we get more votes, please? At least 10, just to have an idea. So everyone, majority voting yellow or red during this period here. So the calculated times are 254, 255. There is a flip at 253 and a bunch at 254, which I just saw right now. There's a flip at 3, 309, 316. So there's some extensions here at 309 p.m., 316 p.m., and 327 p.m. is a multi-flip. I had some late odds today too at 348. This was from earlier this afternoon. And then there's some odds at 4 p.m. today and 4:12 p.m. So just after the bell. And then there was a period between 3:36 and 3:38. Okay. Can we get a little bit more votes, guys, before the period ends? There's only a minute left. Come on. I'll tell you guys what I voted for once it ends. It's interesting too that these calculated times here at my 59, 58 also link to the 90. And this is kind of where they're getting stuck. So I would imagine like right at 88, 89, these would for sure be the points that they'd probably have to get back over, because these points in time were also linked to this point in time here. Okay, majority voted red. Is it over? Okay, I voted yellow just because I figured that at the very least I would imagine that they would at least try to retest that 90 mark, an 8-8, before taking like a full reversal or making a decision, and specifically around this time of day, because this should basically set the tone of the direction they want to take. If they trigger red, then that's fine. Like I said, they could still trigger downside at this time and have a retracement back up, but I just feel like that would really cap range for the session today, or make it so that these areas are maybe pinnable. But we should start seeing some increase in volatility coming in here. They do need some 8-8 breaks though. So that would be the first major overhead they'd have to clear, probably by like 53. whoever voted green, that's not necessarily wrong. It's just you'd have to at the very least be above 8890. Do you know what I mean? For that to even be a probability. Otherwise, like you'd be looking for like what, a 7 point stick or something, or at least 3.5 double points in 2 minutes or a minute. It's kind of unrealistic unless there's like news or something. Okay, let's see. You can see how they put this in an area of risk though, like beneath 8.8 but above 8.4. Nice work, guys, for getting that right. I could tell that they weren't going to clear once they stalled 8.8 ahead of like 52, 53. 74.84 being tested here, exactly between that 255 to 254 window. These are extremely calculated times and price points. 7484 is a pretty big trigger, specifically at the 255 mark. So that's not a coincidence that they're triggering that exact price. 8350, 7584 at exactly 2:55 p.m. And this is where volatility could basically increase, okay, or decrease if they decide to hold here and then bring it back to 75.87, 75.88. What's something specifically that stands out during this period here that you guys notice? What stands out to you guys? Something pretty specific stands out. I think it's very obvious. What stands out here, guys, over the next 30 minutes? Not really. I guess like off of 7-8, yes. But something specific in the next 30 minutes that stands out. So these extensions here would, oops, would have cleared to here at a minimum, and these areas here would have likely cleared at least back to here. These areas here have a risk of going back to here. What's something that stands out in this 20 to 30 minute interval? Come on, you guys. What stands out in this 20 to 30 minute interval? I'm gonna move my boxes a bit since we triggered here at this point, so it puts odds of downside in place, specifically if they can't even retrace back to here, obviously. Like that extended downside would have odds during this period here. Where did my arrow go? It's crazy that you guys either can't answer that or you just don't want to answer that. It's very strange. I'm going to watch 3:05 because it's a pretty generic time, but usually the first 5 minutes after 3 are pretty vital. We've only got an hour left in the session, and so far they're still holding 7578 to 7581, but breach just beneath 7583, 7584, which is a structural support this afternoon. That does make sense though, based on where they opened and where they stalled off 7595, which is our huge area that we have to break in order to see any sort of odds of retesting 7599 to 7602. There is a multi-flip period here, so that can sometimes create some volatility or some back and forth price action. So far, bears still have control because not only did they trigger 7583.84 at exactly 255, they have yet to retract back over that. Like, I don't know if you guys can see this, but you see how like they're kind of failing still beneath 84 here. They have to at least get back over 8485 and then retest that 75.87 to 88 area to neutralize this somewhat. To avoid this continued breakdown, they'd have to at least get back to here. Otherwise, that downside still remains in play for 7578, 7581. We kind of said that we could continue this box here. Next flip was at this 305. The 309, 316 are the actual flips. I'm just kind of watching 305 because it's usually a generic time of day. But the actual time is 309. I think it was a good call. Initially, I didn't take any off here. I kind of wanted to see how they'd react to 9.5 first, specifically around this period in the day. And then once they started failing this 90, 91 area and then kind of failed to get back over here, I covered half. I still have the second half, but we had some pretty good entries this morning in this range in here. So again, if they want to really neutralize this, I would think that they'd have to get back over at least 8.8, probably within this window here, like latest around that 327. 327 was a multi-flip. And I don't even think that this really increases odds. It just kind of makes it so that it's a bit more neutralized. .308, guys, is ahead of this 309 flip, so that's very bad if it breaks down ahead of 309, because that means that it's triggering pre-flip. So 7581 triggering at exactly 3:08 p.m. That means 309 would have a ton of pressure to try to negate. That's a big flip for us this afternoon. Failing 8178 is what could take us basically all the way back to 7571, 7568. Keep it within like this base down here, which at that point I would say the close just becomes pinnable. Sustaining off 8.1 is important for them to get back at least again, like I said, over 8-8. They'd have to bring this somehow back into the zone. So see if 8-9 or 0-9 can at least get back over this 8-3, 8-4. Let me just delete this so I can see a little bit better. Probably going to be a pretty boring close from the looks of it. Let me just delete these. I think you guys have a pretty good idea of risk reward. This was pretty crazy that they triggered that at exactly 255 though. And then this here right into 308, 309. The next odd here was 316. So put some pressure on for 315, 16. So far these are just nesting, basing upper core areas, which I think it was, this is what I meant earlier when I said we haven't really based the 70s, 80s yet. Someone earlier was saying like base 88 to 99, which is true, but we didn't really form like a completely solid base in here. Like they kind of just like moved it right up above 81, 84 as opposed to like basing it. $312, trying to put some pressure on before this 315, 316 window. You can see that exact hold off 812. What do you guys think? You think that they can hold 75, 81, bring it back over 84, 85, retag 87, 90, and maybe just neutralize this into the second half? I think there's some pressure for 316, 327. Like I said, there's multi-flips this afternoon. Usually with multi-flips, it can create some back and forth, especially off like major support areas like this, which I would consider these major support areas around 81, 83. But then it does put a lot of constraints on time, just because this was triggered on time, this was triggered on time. That can keep things valid until close. So like retracing back over this zone area earliest by 316, no later than 327 would be pretty crucial. Otherwise it would keep that downside still at risk. How do you guys not ever answer anything? Off 8-1, there's really only two scenarios. They either try getting this back over 8890, and then keep this pinnable in these ranges here into the close, right? Or they stall here, bring it back down to here, and this makes it pinnable back at these core areas into the close with maybe a slight odd of 8-8 zone pin into the close, okay? $3.15, $3.16 I think are pretty vital. Things have been moving ahead of flips, so we're gonna watch the 15 period. I'm mainly just managing the lost contracts I have anyway, so at this point it doesn't really make a huge difference because they took away odds of expanding anyway, so it's really just to kind of see if they can get this back to retest 8-8 and 9-5. What do we have for time? Still 45 minutes left in the day. That's actually still quite a lot of time. Let's see how much range they reduced overall though. Overall range reduction here off 9.5 is close to 14 points. Usually when you start breaching 13 points, that does imply some risk. So you see how that would have been linked to like the 08, 09 areas. So we were definitely on the right track. $3.15 holding off our 8.350 and trying to retrace over 84.25. $3.16 lots of pressure at this point in time to at the very least take out this 8.425 and try retesting 85.50. I don't have them marked, but around 8.650, 7.5, 8.725 is some overhead. You can see 3.16's trying hard to push here. Do you guys see that? And this is what I was saying earlier, how if they want to just keep this a little bit back and forth, that's the answer of multi-flips, okay? Because there's multi-flips here, they could still try retracing or keeping it slightly back and forth. The midpoint between here and, what, I keep opening that, and 327 is also probably important. Do you guys see how big these sticks are off our flips? So this point here, maybe around like 321. They're trying here. Look at that pressure. See how I said that there has to be some pressure around 316? 758650 tagged off our 316. That was our initial calculated spot here when we had that reduction. If you guys remember, back in here was 8650 and 8725. So they did try. Let me just delete this so you guys can see. Right off that 8650. 321 is and 322 is the midpoint before 327. So like I was saying earlier, if they can't even get this back to at least here by 327, ideally here where that neutralized zone area was around 90, then I would say all odds are off the table for retesting highs. But if they can somehow still get it back to this net neutral spot, then I think that there could still be a probability that they could retest 9.5 into the last half hour of the day. Like 30 minutes for 5 points is pretty reasonable as long as they sustain. But again, it's very relative to this 316, 321, 327 period, okay? 321 seems like the earliest point here to try getting back into the 90 spot if they can clear ahead of time here. 75.88 being retagged here at 318. 321 is the midpoint between this 316 to 327 period around here. 327 was a multi-flip, so it is going to put some pressure on for 326. Obviously 330, 332, 336 we're going to watch anyway since it's imbalance prints, but the actual flips today were 327, 336, 338. And this was the case if they kept odds on for maybe end of day to keep it pinnable. Remember how I said earlier that lows or open is linked to close. And so they might close this in the 75, 80s, and 90s because those were the 44 point ratios, I think, linked off open or something like that. All right, let's do one more pull. I have a massive migraine. I might need to make a coffee, but okay, by 3:27 p.m. Retag 75.90, retag 75.95, fail 75.90, return to 75.83. Clear highs. Okay, I'm only going to set this poll for 2 minutes, guys, because I think by 21, 22 we'd have a better idea. So try voting on that now, please. Because like I said earlier, you could still test 8.3, 8.1, and as long as you hold above this area here that I have highlighted in green, they can still come back and retest high of day. It's just they might limit range. I don't think we're going to obviously see like 75.20s or something in real time anymore, or like 76.11 or something like that, but it could keep it within this range here. Let's get some votes, guys, please. These are the midpoints around 321, 322. So I think breaking 8.8 at this point in time is definitely a big aspect of how this could trade. I think I need to set some alerts around maybe like 75, 91.75 or something. These areas here. And 589.25. Do you see that 321 stick? Okay, come on guys, 1 minute left to vote. We're not even 30 seconds. Majority, oh, this is tied. Someone vote so that this isn't tied. Quickly. These are all tied. Someone put in something so it's not tied. So, okay, I would say them testing and breaking 7588 at 321 is probably a good sign, but they definitely would have to try taking out at least 89, okay, ahead of 327 and tagging 90 for 95 to even be a probability by 327, okay? Otherwise, getting back to this mid-neutral point probably makes sense for the last half hour of the day, because before I deleted these lines, remember it was like this green arrow here, this yellow arrow here, and this is more of like a fire zone, and then this area here is red. That's already a reduction stick off 22. Look at that. And this was the exact midpoint. How many points is that? 2.75. That would have probably been enough to get it past this break in here. Are they okay to break down around the midpoint, like 322? Does that still give them an odd of testing 75.90 around this 327 window? There is that extended window again, like I said, around 336, 338, but so I would say as long as they can hold above 8.4, then they're probably fine. But they would definitely have to try getting back over 8.8 no later than like 326. the range differential here too off. Once it gets very close to being like the same range off lows and highs, that's where things can start being a little bit conflicted. So bears still have a bit of a lead here. And that makes sense that they have a 1-point lead, because we would definitely need to break at least over 90 for this to be a bit more constructive. So we're going to watch the 26, since that's ahead of 27. Does this help you guys have like a better idea of how to break down price action? Because that is important. Like at least understanding how or why things are moving in that direction, or what the kind of range that you could look for is. So we already know if we come beneath this area here, then we could recycle a lot lower. We already know if we come back above 9.5, we'd progress. We know if we come back above 90, depending on the time of the day, that doesn't really progress us. It gives us an odd of at least testing 9.5, but they've already limited range. Like I can tell just based on them taking it 1 beneath 8.8 and 8.4, 2 stalling 9.5, okay? And 3 based on what aspect, and this is huge. What's the biggest aspect here that is in like that entails that they likely reduced range, aside from stalling 9.5 and breaking back to 8.1? And the midpoint between 95 and 8.1 is around 8.8, so it makes sense that they're kind of stalling 8.8. $326 breaking back beneath 8.5. What's the number one aspect here, you guys, that gives us a pretty good idea that they reduced range, aside from them stalling 9.5, okay, them taking it back to 8.1, 327 is very similar to 316, so it could get similar pressure like that stick. 321 was the midpoint, so same sort of idea. Do you see that? So basically this candlestick here is trying to compete back with this 316 strength, okay? And then obviously it needs to get back above this 321 midpoint at a minimum, so it could regain probability for that 330, 336, 338 window. Does that make sense? Otherwise you'd come back and potentially retest the 8.4. So it needs back over, I would say 8.6 at a minimum. So them stalling 8.675, that still can be bearish. This needs some follow through. I did tag it, but there's no closing breaks above that. You for sure would need a follow through stick off 2.8, 2.9. Come on, you guys. What's the number one factor here that's playing a huge role in range reduction, or keeping this potentially sideways? What are we running low on? Okay, let's Let's start cleaning this up a bit. Yeah, time. I don't think there's very much time. No. I didn't like that 327 also couldn't get that break over 8675 or even close over 86. So again, it probably puts some odds of retesting this 81 area. 330, 332, 336 opening a bit of a window of volatility here off those 86 stalls. We'll see if they can hold 83. If they can hold 83, this area in here, then they could still try retesting 8675, but this is still making it a little bit tricky. And the only reason I'm saying that they could is because they did take out 88. Had they not taken out 88, then that odd would be completely off. But so we can either have it work out to be something like this, where they still get back over here, right? Whereas if they fail to get back over 86, let's say during like this window here, this is what could push it back to basically retest here. That would be the bigger short into the close. If they get this back over at least this 86, then they could get this back over 88 during this 336, 338 window, and that could just get us back zone bound. Okay, I might end this stream just because, I don't know, a half hour seems like a long time to be stuck in this range. maybe they can give us a nice core move off these core areas into the close. This is starting to get pretty boring, but if they actually do hold 8-1, 8-3 in base like this, like a 7-8, 8-1, 8-3 base, that is a really nice base. But they really, really have to start breaking 8-8, 90, okay? Like 7-8, this is so far a 7-1, 7-8, 8-1, 8-3 base, which is solid. But for it to be constructive, it needs above 8-8, 90, okay? $336 and 38 were the actual flips today. I know they're imbalanced prints, but they're also the flips today, so maybe it'll give us those odds of retesting 8-8. I hope we get a decent move into the close, so I didn't sit here this afternoon for nothing, especially if I could have just covered my whole position back up here. I want to see where this is. 36 was a multi-flip too, so there's the 8-750 test. Because the flips are between 336 and 338, 337 could see some movement too. And these are the bigger areas that we want to start seeing break here between 8-8 and 90. Otherwise, again, they'll probably keep us stuck at core. So getting back in here would be better for odds to keep us in the zone. And close up our week exactly where we had initially planned. We'll see. Reduction stick off that 337 stick, 1.5 to 2 points, so that's probably close to that 8-9-90. They're making this as tricky as possible to get back over 90. Market knows over 8-8-90 is what's going to progress this back to 9-5, so. And then of course we're gonna, there's some odds at 348 today, but obviously we're gonna watch 350, 54, 55. There's an odd right at 4. But I feel like beneath 8-8 isn't really gonna do anything for us. Hopefully they can at least close over this A6. I put up another poll here. What do you guys think? So highs could be in. That means that they would keep it stuck beneath 8-8. Another odd would be breaking highs and getting to 9-6, 9-8. Third odd I put in there would be a 9-1, 9-3 retest. So maybe they don't quite give us a high of day retest, but maybe back to this area in here and then pin around this area here. So let me know what you guys think. Obviously a lot will have to do with where we're trading before 350. So the obvious is if we're trading above 90 before 350, then I think we would for sure have an auto retesting high of day. But and I guess I could have included 7602, 7603 in there, but whatever. So get the last few sessions, they have been saving most of like the move for the last few minutes of the day. So I wouldn't be surprised if they did something similar today. But again, I wouldn't be surprised if they also made this pinnable in these areas here too, because these are pretty pinnable spots. Come on, let's get more votes than that, you guys. So we're 7 points off from highs and about 7 points off these 8-1 lows. So this is pretty net neutral here. Still. One more person vote, so it's not tied. Oh, that's still tied between highs are in and 9193. So for max range to be 9193, they'd likely have to still stay stuck beneath here, like 89, but then hold above 85. Does that make sense? That would make it like very bar-coded price action. This is a very good hold though for maybe overnight and into next week if they end up holding these areas in the 80s and 70s. So we did have some late flips today at 348, 349, which is ahead of 350, which is interesting because those were the only ones I had after this 327, 316 period from back here. So that's the only thing that could keep these odds on for 75.90 retest before 350. Okay, are those late odds? What's another thing that could keep odds on? This is durational till when? Based on the time frames we looked at earlier that are linked to highs. This is a pretty good break here of 88 off 344 ahead of that last 15-minute interval at 345. What do we need to have happen after a 7588 close though here? What's something that has yet to occur every single time they've tagged 88? We haven't had any follow through, okay, or any closing sticks above. Every single time this is tagged 8-8 or closed there, like back in here, within this last hourly period, they've stalled. So follow through on this stick here, I would say, is pretty important, even if it's just them holding 8-8, okay? Because every single time they tend to break it right back down like they're doing right now. And that's right off that 345 stick. The only thing that could be favorable here is there still is that window at 348, 349. How crucial do you guys think it is that they'd have to be at least closing over 8-8 and progressing over 8-8 during the 348 to 349 period ahead of 350? And specifically since 348, 349 are also some flips today. That are linked to high of day and to lows. Probably pretty important. Because if they fail here, this is what could keep it stuck in the 80s, guys, and maybe pin these ranges here. And we still have that risk of 7.5, 7.9 if they can't get back over this 8.890 wall, basically. And we'll see what kind of breaks we can get here off the 348, 349 window. So far, they're still stalling 8.8. Could we see a 75.90 break right at 350? Possibly. But again, like I said, I think if they open beneath 8.8 during this window, that could, even if they tag 90, that could still create some volatility here into the close, okay? So that's something worth noting. Okay, I'm going to focus a bit here. I'm just going to mute myself. Okay, they're doing exactly what we thought they could do into the close off these 8-3, 8-1 holds. Is it doesn't mean that they can't at least get it back to 8-9-90. And like I was saying earlier this morning, where they open often can decipher the pin. So if they want to keep it around the 44, 43 point ranges into the close, which is aligned with open, this would be pinning around 75.88, 75.90, 75.91. So, and like I said, they might just save it for like the last 2 to 3 minutes of the day. And this is durational till closed. Our final flip is at 4. So, and they really save that range off that 355 cutoff period. So we'll see here. 1 minute to go. Hopefully we can get a 75.90 test right at 359. I'm not sure if they can retest highs in real time at this point, but I figured maybe they could at the very least maybe get back over they could maybe get back over at least 90, 91, or retest it 90, 91. That would be a really good area to pin the close. But do you guys see how they minimized range? They made it so that 90, 91 is max as opposed to like 94, 95. 75, 88, 89 being taken out here right into the close, kind of like how we figured they could do this. I saved my last contracts for literally 4 o'clock just because I knew the odds were right into the close and we still held 84, 83. So I was better off just covering everything earlier, but that's okay. 75.90 right at 359, you guys. And looks like they're going to pin right around our zone. 75, 88, 90, 89, 91. There is an odd at 4, and I think it was 412. So they could move this after the bell here and retest highs, but I felt like odds for real time were pretty limited. Like I didn't really think that they could do that anymore in real time. Look at that. See? Look at that break. Do you see that? Right into that closing stick. 91, 75, 90.75. So that's exactly our 44 points off open that I talked about earlier. Because usually open is linked to close, so they could close it right within opening ratios. Pinned exactly there. Look. Exactly what I sent. In Discord, I had sent it a few minutes ago. That's crazy. Okay, guys, I'm going to sign off. I will catch you guys later. I'll probably put out just some short notes today. It's up to you guys. Do you guys want a second report for the week? This week was kind of slow, which is the only reason why I didn't put one out yesterday, because we've kind of just been within our ranges of core and kind of staying stuck at neutral. Like the conditions are the exact same. Overnight tonight, obviously we want to hold above 7571, 7578. Ideally 7581, 7584 at this point, and progress in the zone, meaning 7595, 7599, 7603 retest. Idea for the week still remains the same, with 7611 being a huge target area for us. Since we had core holds, we can leave odds for 7620s, 7630s on the table with slight probability of 7640s, but from the looks of it, they may be saving that for mid-month. Okay? Any questions before I sign off? We'll see if they can pin us at least 7588, 7590. That would be good. Obviously 7595 would be even better, but... And like I mentioned earlier, they could just be breaking this into 2 parts. So if they break this into 2 parts, it doesn't leave them too much range for tomorrow, unless they want to just have like a zone day tomorrow. So I'm wanting a zone bound day tomorrow, okay? So 7588, 7632. Got it? That would be ideal. But to do that, we obviously have to hold these core areas. Absolute max downside would be 7555 to 7558, 68 area, this range in here. And that would only be mainly because we didn't really base too much there. And if they did something like that, that's where they could limit range to maybe 7595, 7602, 7611. And they'd take away odds of us getting to 76 20s, 30s, 40s. Make sense? Whereas holding here and staying above here, okay, are you guys still with me? Staying above here, okay, core, closing in the zone. As long as we can hold this area overnight, we could fill the zone areas tomorrow. Got it? That was the plan for the week anyway, so. Whereas if they recycle range, maybe fail, come back down, maybe come back down to here, then we're probably limited for the week. Okay? If they stall but hold core, so like they still hold 7-1, 7-4, that's okay, but we might maybe limit to like the 76-14, 18 area instead. Okay, those are just some ideas into the close. Rewatch the last 10 minutes if you guys want to go over overnight conditions. And hopefully they can give us a pin over 99.1. I don't know if we can pin 9.5, but that would be even better. Okay, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.